How's it going, people? Roller42 here. It looks like the video game industry is developing a really bad habit of hiding out-of-touch people to make out-of-touch publicity stunts to market their games. Especially with Ubisoft. Cause they are really developing this really bad streak of getting caught in hot water because they are trying to use real-life political issues to market their games. Now, I know there is a meme going around the internet that wants to say that developers should keep politics out of their games, but in this context, it actually makes sense of why we wouldn't want those quote-unquote politics in there. And I'm not talking, of course, about feminism, I'm not talking about making their games more inclusive or things like that. I am simply talking about how they are trying to use real-life events for their games. Now, for those who wonder what I am getting at, the link is in the description, so you can have a nice read. Because you see, I don't have any problem if a video game decides it wants to make a reference to a real-life event, or if it wants to reference real-life politics. Because sometimes those references can be used to enhance what is happening with the game's plot. It can be used to really give you something to think about with what is happening in the real world. I don't mind that. If handled correctly, it can lead to some really good stuff. That is not the case with Ubisoft though, and with some of their later games. Cause the most recent one, the one I'm linking in the description, Ubisoft has gotten in hot water yet again because in order to promote the new Watch Dogs, they are starting to make references to the Chinese protest of their no extradition bill. That is a kind of worms I'm not gonna get into too much, it's only that it is a very serious issue that is getting people protesting all over China. People are getting arrested, people are getting hurt, kind of part of the course with real life protests. The problem is that Ubisoft decided to take this very real-life protest and they are using it to promote Watch Dogs 3 or Watch Dogs Legion, whatever you want to call this thing. This game is basically supposed to be set in the UK, it's supposed to be set in London. After the whole Brexit deal, it is set in the future, where apparently now the UK is this big futuristic technological dystopia. And instead of controlling one single character, you are controlling multiple characters. You can get multiple people recruited into the resistance, and you're all trying to rebel against the government because now everything is monitored and controlled by technology. And that's perfectly fine. Using Brexit as a backdrop to segue into the futuristic fictional setting where you play as a badass grandma kicking ass, that's fine, really. Like, it's only making a mere reference to it, and then it's using it to just make the game into its own thing. Many games have done this kind of stuff before, and that's fine. The problem is that on social media, in order to promote the game, Ubisoft removed every reference to London, and then they decided to make a picture that resembles the protests going on in China. Basically, they're trying to say, yeah, this is basically the same thing you guys are fighting for. You guys are fighting against the government. Our game is about fighting the government too, so come play it, buy it. It will be like you're supporting the cause or something really stupid like that. And basically, this is why Ubisoft is now apologizing to China. They are facing some really serious backlash. Because the problem is not so much that they are references the Chinese protest against this immigration bill or extradition bill, whatever. Problem is they are using it as a cash-in. This is just a cheap cash-in to get the game noticed. And it will be understandable if this was an isolated incident, but it is not. Ubisoft right now is among the companies who has developed the terrible habit of cashing in on real-life issues. Take The Division 2, for example. Early this year, Donald Trump set up a government shutdown because he wanted Congress to approve funding for his border wall. That is a kind of words I have my reservations on. I'm not gonna comment on that, but the point is that for a couple of weeks, the government was shut down at the US. People were not getting paid. People were facing some serious monetary issues because they were not being compensated to do their jobs. Basically, the US was a mess. What did Ubisoft decide to do in their infinite wisdom? They decided to take this, send emails to many people out there and say, you want to see what a real government shutdown looks like? Play your game! And that's just bad. And you could say, well, these are only 2 incidents, it cannot get worse. Well, it did happen again even earlier when Far Cry 5 was getting promoted, because they gave out this really weird impression that the main villains of Far Cry 5 were going to be this dangerous Christian cult, and ultimately it ended up being just, you know, a very interesting take on the Jonestown massacre. Basically, the cult was basically the Jonestown stuff, and not really the right-wing extremism that many people wanted it to be. The point I'm making is that Ubisoft is using political events. They are trying to reference real-life issues, but they are trying to use them just for marketing. It's not something that is actually in their games, it's not something they are truly trying to reflect on. Which is why you see Ubisoft desperately scrambling about trying to tell you that no, none of our games is political, none of our games is having any politics to them. Except they kinda do. Like, even if you remove the marketing for these games, all the tone-deaf marketing of their games, they are still using politics as a backdrop. It may be fictional, it may try to be impartial, but the point is that it is something that exists. You cannot escape politics, and when your marketing department is this tone-deaf, this out of touch with what's going on in the real world, you really need to stop trying to pretend you're apolitical or you're not trying to send any kind of message, because even if you're just trying to make a reference, your video games having a political reference is still trying to give you some kind of message. Even if it's not trying to take a stance, it is still giving your audience some food for thought. And any developer and any writer needs to keep that in mind if they are going to be referencing real-life events or real-life politics. That is part of why so many gamers get annoyed when these things get referenced, because video game companies are not really handling well anymore. There is a lot of other examples, but I really wanted to focus on Ubisoft, because like I said, they are getting really silly about this. And you will think a company that is making these mistakes so often to eventually learn their lesson and get better at it. I'm gonna repeat myself for the last time, but I don't really mind it when politics are being referenced in my games. I don't really mind it if you want to get political or if you want to get people to have something to think about by referencing the real life politics that are happening in our world. But if you're going to do it, at least do it right. At least be competent about it and don't make a fool of yourself. Because then nobody's really going to take you seriously when you're desperately trying to say, no, we are not political, we are not using politics, or we are not trying to tell a message. Because it makes you look stupid. Really, really stupid. But yeah, that is my take on all of this. That is basically what I see. That's how I feel about this. I'm starting to ramble at this point, so I better wrap this up. What do you guys think about all of this? How do you feel about Ubisoft trying to walk back all their political stuff? Let me know in the comments area. I always enjoy listening to your feedback. Feel free to agree, feel free to disagree. As for me, that is going to be it for this video, so thank you very much for watching, and as usual, I'll see you all in the next one.